All right, let's dive right into one of the biggest, most profound questions anyone can ask: the problem of pain. We're going to tackle it through a really fascinating lens: the idea of divine justice.
I mean, you've probably wondered about this, right? Why do earthquakes happen? Why do genuinely good people face unbelievable hardship? If God is supposed to be all just and all merciful, how do you explain all the suffering in the world? It just doesn't seem to add up. This is the big paradox we're going to unpack.
So, where do we even begin? Well, the sources we're looking at suggest we need to start by completely reframing the question. The idea is maybe it's not a flaw in God, but a serious limitation in our own human perspective.
Okay, so here is the absolute bedrock of this entire line of thought. Before we go any further, we have to start with one foundational premise. God is, by definition, perfect. And because of that perfection, it is logically impossible for God to be unjust. This isn't just a belief, it's the core axiom. Everything else flows from this one single point.
This analogy just nails the whole perspective problem. Imagine you walk into a room and you see a man holding a knife over another person. Your first thought? Something terrible is happening. But what if you zoom out and see he's a surgeon in an operating room performing a life-saving procedure? The action is exactly the same, but the wider context, the bigger reality completely flips it from an act of evil to an act of incredible mercy.
So if our immediate view is just too small, what's the solution? Well, we have to zoom out, and I mean way out. The argument here is that to get any real answers, we have to look beyond the very limited frame of this one life. Here's another way to think about it. You see a house being torn down. On the surface, it's pure destruction, right? A total loss. But if you knew the owner was clearing that weak foundation to build a much stronger, safer, more beautiful home, suddenly the act isn't destructive at all. It's wise. It's the same action, just seen from that bigger picture point of view. And this right here, this is the absolute game changer for this entire perspective. To even begin to understand divine justice, you have to accept that this world, this life, it's not the whole story. The belief in an afterlife, what's called the hereafter, is absolutely crucial. Now, this surgery metaphor is a really powerful way to look at it. Think of our life in this world, with all its pains and struggles, as a difficult illness. In this view, death isn't the end. It's just you finally entering the operating room. And the hereafter? That's you waking up, totally pain-free, fully healed, and just relieved. So for someone innocent who suffers, death isn't a tragedy. It's a transfer to a much, much better place. All right, so if suffering isn't just random chaos, then what's the point? What's it for? From this viewpoint, hardship is never, ever meaningless. It always has a purpose, as a test, maybe a wake-up call, or a catalyst for something better. And there isn't just one purpose. There are layers of wisdom here. For one, hardship pushes us to innovate. I mean, without disease, would we have ever developed medicine? On a personal level, tough times often make people turn back to God. It can also purify a person's soul, kind of like how immense pressure creates a diamond. And finally, when a tragedy happens somewhere, it becomes a test for the rest of us. Are you going to show compassion and help, or are you just going to look away? And we have to be super clear about this next point. A huge amount of the suffering in the world, we're talking war, poverty, corruption, the source is very clear. This is not from God. This is the direct result of human choices. It's human injustice, born from our own greed and selfishness. You can't turn around and blame God for the mess we make ourselves. So we've talked a lot about theory and analogies, but how does this actually work in practice? Well, there's this incredible story in the Quran that just pulls all of these ideas together perfectly. It's a powerful lesson in seeing the hidden mercy behind what looks like a total tragedy. So the story kicks off with the prophet Musa, or Moses, and he is deeply, deeply bothered by this exact question, all the suffering he sees in the world. So he seeks out this mysterious teacher named Khidr, who is known to have a special, deeper knowledge from God. Khidr agrees to teach him, but on one condition. Musa is not allowed to question anything he does until Khidr decides it's time to explain. So they start their journey. They get on a boat that belongs to some poor fishermen who are kind enough to give them a ride, and then, out of nowhere, Khidr starts breaking the boat. Musa just can't believe it. He immediately objects, like, how could you do that to the very people who just helped us? But later, Khidr explains what was really going on.
There was a tyrant king just ahead who was seizing every single good boat by force. By making a small, easily fixable hole in their boat, Khidr made it look worthless, so the king's soldiers just passed it by. That little act of damage was actually an act of hidden mercy. It saved the fishermen's only way of making a living.
Okay, if you thought the boat was shocking, buckle up. The next thing that happens is just unbelievable. They see a young boy playing, and Khidr takes his life. This time Musa is completely horrified. He cries out that this is an evil act, that he has killed an innocent soul.
But again, there was that hidden reality. Khidr explains that God knew this boy was going to grow up to be a terrible person who would cause his righteous parents immense grief and suffering. By taking his life young, God was saving the parents from that future heartbreak and would give them a better child instead. And the boy himself was spared a lifetime of evil, with the whole family to be reunited in paradise. It's this mind-bending idea of a momentary tragedy being a profound, long-term act of mercy. All right, so the last stop on their journey isn't a tragedy. It's just weird. They get to a town, and the people are so rude they refuse them even basic food and water. Yet, despite this, Khidr sees a wall that's about to collapse, and he starts rebuilding it. For free, for people who treated them terribly. And the final piece of the puzzle? Under that wall was a hidden treasure, left there by a good man for his 2 young orphaned children. If that wall had fallen, the greedy townspeople would have taken it. By fixing the wall, Khidr wasn't doing a favor for the rude town. He was protecting the inheritance of 2 orphans, making sure justice was served for them down the line. So this whole journey of Musa and Khidr, right? It's basically a masterclass in perspective. It's designed to show us, in a very real way, that what looks unjust or cruel or just plain senseless from our limited point of view can actually be an act of perfect mercy and justice from a divine, all-knowing perspective. So what's the big takeaway from all of this? At the end of the day, it really boils down to one simple but profound idea. Our knowledge is like looking at the world through a keyhole. We see one tiny little piece, but we have no idea what the rest of the room looks like. The past, the present, the infinite future. What looks like a meaningless tragedy to us might be a crucial piece of a much larger, beautiful plan. And so the ultimate lesson here is a call to trust in a wisdom that is infinitely greater than our own.
And that kind of leaves us with one last question to really chew on. If our entire life, our entire understanding, is just a single brush stroke on a canvas that stretches into infinity, how can we possibly have the perspective to stand back and judge the entire masterpiece?